All right, as a preliminary matter, my name is Samantha Holt, Town Staff Conservation Agent for the Newbury Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Conservation Commission members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Connors.
Yes.
Brad Duffin is not going to be here. Diane O'Brien.
Yes.
Mary Rimmer is also not going to be here. Mick Brown. No, we can see him, but we can't hear him.
I'm on mute again. Here, yes.
TJ Conti.
Yes.
And Woody Knight is not here, but he should be here shortly. But as of right now, we do have a quorum.
Okay.
All right. Good evening. This October 3rd, 2023 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along in the deliberations of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials were provided to the commission members prior to the meeting for review and were posted to the Conservation Commission webpage for public access. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Proponents will be given 10 minutes to present. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. After they conclude their remarks, we will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name has been called. Further, for all attendees except commission members and staff, please remember to mute your computer using the mute button or your phone using *6 to toggle mute and unmute when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that videoed participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer unless you've been allowed to do so. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any responses, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If commission members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After commission members have spoken, we will afford the public an opportunity to comment and or ask questions as follows. I will seek questions and comments at the appropriate time through the Zoom raise hand function. Video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants button. A list of participants will open a display on the right. At the bottom of this participant area, you will see an option to click on a raise hand function. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the more function next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone's keypad. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna let a couple people in. All right, we will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they appear listed on my screen based on when the function was selected. Each participant will be called upon to provide their name and address or affiliation and will be afforded 3 minutes to make comments. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. The proponent or commission members will have the opportunity to reply as needed. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will then continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and again afford time for responses as needed. All participants are reminded that only matters which fall into the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission may be discussed. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, and everyone is expected to conduct themselves in the same manner they would in an in-person meeting. Disruptions that impede operations of this commission will be addressed once by the chair and should be acknowledged by the disruptor. Further disruptions may result in complete removal from the meeting with no readmittance. Vulgar or obscene actions or comments will result in immediate removal from the meeting with no readmittance. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, good evening. Upcoming meeting dates, October 17th and November 7th and December 5th. All right, we have minutes for our September 5th and September 19th meeting. Why don't we take these separately? Why don't we take a moment and review the September 5th meeting to see if there's any questions, concerns, or corrections?
I don't think I ever put those in
I was gonna say, wait,
the
what?
folder, which is entirely my fault. I realized this afternoon when it was way too late to send them out to you guys that I hadn't done that. I thought I
Moving
put
on
them
to our
in
next
last week.
order of business,
Got me
moving on.
scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You know,
thought I put them in last week. There were a couple things that I thought I put in the Dropbox last week that I did not, and that was one of the ones that I didn't.
No,
It was too
no
late.
explanation necessary. I looked at everything but the minutes, Sam, so my bad. Okay, first order of business is a request for determination of applicability on 5 Second Street, the work to replace existing roof deck and stairs. Sam, can you give us a project overview and a recommendation on this matter?
Yes, and I apologize. I was just looking to see if the applicant or her representatives were here, and it doesn't look like they are. Thankfully, this one is pretty straightforward. Give me 1 second to open it up. So they are doing a roof deck replacement. The only thing that really is in our jurisdiction at all, and that's going to have any sort of ground impact whatsoever, is the stair replacement. And I would just like to note, I do realize that the applicant and I have the same last name. As far as I am aware, we are not related. So I'm not too worried about having to do any sort of conflict of interest stuff with that one. I didn't recognize her when I went out and met her. So there's a little bonus for us. Just a funny coincidence that we have the same last name.
Okay, yeah, I actually took a ride by this, Sam, and it looks pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah. So they are doing they're doing the roof deck replacement, and I think it actually, oh, that's the wrong one. So the photos actually do it a little bit more justice than anything else does. So sorry, my computer is so slow today. So oh my goodness, we're having a malfunction right now. So the existing stairs that go down to the ground are, oh boy, yikes. The existing stairs that go down to the ground are, it's kind of a smaller area than what's there right now. They kind of come straight down. And if these pictures would open up sometime today, I could show you what they look like. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. So the existing stairs kind of come down on kind of come down right to this general area. It's a pretty small footprint where they come down to right now. There are going to be new footings added to the base down here and to the side over here that are coming down from the actual deck itself. The homeowner actually wanted to try to have a spiral staircase that went up to the deck, but the contractor was a little bit concerned about that meeting the building code and her ability to get up and down the stairs if need be. So he suggested to have them do these extra stairs that are a little bit longer, a little bit larger footprint, but overall they're going to be better. They meet the building code a little bit better. It's a pretty straightforward project. There are going to be new footings, but the area that they are going into, and I'm having issues opening up the photos for some reason. But the area that the footings are going to be going into and the area that the stairs are going to be over is all gravel from the driveway. So there's really no like dune impact. There's no vegetation impact like that. It's just a pretty straightforward, pretty simple project. There we go. Now we can see those. So the existing stairs came down right here, right at the base down here, and came down right on the side. They were kind of steep. The previously existing ones, they came down right in this area. There is a little bit of like very, very kind of scrubby grass and like moss and stuff down on the ground, but nothing really significant that raises any major concerns for me. Everything that's in here is all compacted gravel from the parking areas. And the parking actually comes up pretty far in front of where the stairs are going to start and end. So there's not really, all the impact is going to be over previously disturbed area. And I believe the width of the stairs isn't going to come out more than a few feet. You can kind of see might be able to, so you can see the bulkhead here. It's not going to extend farther than that. So even at its furthest, it's only going to get into the parking area. So it's a pretty straightforward, pretty low impact
Okay.
project.
All right, Sam, when I hold you there, any questions for Sam on this one?
What kind of footings?
When I was discussing it with them, with the contractor, I don't think they knew exactly what kind of footings they were going to use yet. It was going to be based off of what we had said and what the building commissioner said. And I did advise him that typically we look for like diamond pier footings are the most common. And I did note to him that the last few times that we've issued permits for work where new footings are going to go in, we've noted that preferably they'll be either helical piles, diamond piers, or driven wood piles or steel piles. Whatever is ultimately at the suggestion and approval of the building commissioner. And they were more than agreeable to that. So I don't think they've fully decided what kind of pilings they're going to be yet, what kind of footings they're going to be, but they were agreeable to the options that we have.
Okay, any other questions, Diane?
Nope.
TJ, any questions on this one?
Nope, that was my only thought as well.
Okay, thank you, TJ. Mick, any questions on this one?
No, Chair. No questions for me.
Okay, Sam, any raised hands from the public at this time? On this matter, at least?
Do not see any.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to issue a negative determination for number 5 Second Street.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Roll call vote. TJ,
aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Sam, let me know when Woody, my screen's pretty full here. Let me know when Woody gets on. For the rest of the residents tonight, I've elected to take a couple of items out of order because they were going to be relatively quick and expedient for the board, and I think for all residents and others present. So the next order of business is DEP file number. It's unassigned. 76 Cottage Road. The applicant requests a continuance to 10/17. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing to 10/17?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Roll call vote. TJ,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. All right, next order of business is DEP file number 0501320, 16 Riverfront. A request to amend the existing order of conditions to include installation of a buried propane tank. Sam, can you provide an overview on this one and a recommendation?
Yes. So the original order of conditions for this one was issued, I believe it was for a house construction with some associated site work. The new project, if I can find the folder, is for just the buried propane tank. It is going to be, one second. I'm having so many issues with my computer today.
It looks like it's in front of the house,
Yep.
close to the street. Sam, is that?
Yep, going right up on the street, right up next to the street. I can share that with you guys. So the propane tank is gonna go right in here. I don't really have any concerns about it. The only reason that it's really in front of us right now as an amendment is because it's in that 200-foot riverfront. But it's far enough away. It's well within the limit of work for all of the other work that's been done. So I don't really have any concerns about it. The only next steps for the applicant is going to be to make sure that it gets permitted appropriately through the inspectional services with the gas hookups and everything.
Okay. Questions from the members? TJ, any questions on this matter?
Nope, none from me.
All right, thank you, TJ. Mick, any questions on this one?
Yeah, a couple of questions. What is the construction of the tank? Is it a steel tank or is it fiberglass?
Good question. Is the applicant present, Sam, or is there someone making a presentation for the applicant?
Yep, we do have the applicant here. You can go ahead, Mark.
Okay, yeah, Mark, just state your name
good-
and address for the record, please.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mark Batchelder, and we own property at 16 Riverfront. And the construction of the tank is a steel tank.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mark. Again, Mick Brown from one of the Conservation Commission members. What is the bottom of the tank relative to like mean groundwater level in that area?
The mean groundwater level from the previous shallow well was 19 feet from
Okay.
grade. So the tank is approximately 40 inches in diameter.
Okay.
And it will be set on a concrete pad and secured.
Beautiful.
So I do not anticipate any water table
Yeah.
problems.
It makes sense. You don't want a steel tank sitting in groundwater, you know? so-
Understood.
Mick,
Okay. No,
any
That was
any
my
other
only
questions?
question.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Mick.
you, Mick. Diane, any questions for Mark on this one?
No, I know in the past we've discouraged the buried tanks, but I guess each one is very fact specific, and I have looked at this and I don't have any questions.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Diane. I mean, typically on the barrier island, I think that's been probably more the rub and, but where this isn't on Plum Island. I have no questions. Sam, any raised hands from the public?
Not that I can see.
Okay. All right, do any members have a request for a site visit or additional information or plan amendment to this notice of intent?
No,
Okay,
No.
hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
so moved.
Second, do we have a second? Okay,
Second,
okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Roll call vote. TJ,
aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. All right, team, any other discussions under special conditions? I think this is pretty clear cut. I'll entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions, excuse me, to issue the amendment to the order of conditions for 16 Riverfront. Sam, any particular conditions you want to include?
Usually the only one that I include as it relates to propane tanks, especially buried propane tanks, is that the applicant has to make sure that they comply with all of the state, local, federal regulations regarding buried propane tanks, which is typically something that the gas inspector would actually, the gas inspector and the fire department would typically
Okay,
handle most of that. Most of it doesn't really have anything to do with us.
okay, you have the verbiage for that
Yep.
that you can just plug in?
Yep.
All right, team, I'll entertain a motion to, did we already do this? The motion to issue an order, the amendment? Okay, roll call vote, I guess, is the only thing.
No, I
left.
don't think we
We didn't, we just closed the
didn't.
hearing.
I so move.
Okay, why don't we start this over? Seems like it's been a long day for me, I guess, apparently.
Me too, Bob.
Is there a motion to issue an amendment to the existing order of conditions for 16 Riverfront with the usual conditions?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, now, well, how about a roll call vote? All those in favor, say aye. TJ,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is DEP file number 0501415. 3 Main Street for work to construct a single-family dwelling, garage, driveway, and septic system with associated site work. Sam, we all did a site inspection on this, and I don't think we had any questions in the field. Does anyone need a recap on this matter, or we pretty clear on the intent of this? I think all of us are at the site inspection.
I don't need a recap.
Do you need a nightcap, Diane? I think is probably the
No.
I'll take the
Not
nightcap.
yet, we're in a
Yeah,
public meeting.
I know, I
Wait until
know.
we're done.
Okay, Sam, is the applicant have anything to add? I say put wire ahead, but
We do have representatives from Marshanda. I don't know, looks like we have 2 of them.
okay. Well, I don't think we have questions. Are there any raised hands from the public at this time?
I do not see any, and I don't see either of them unmuting themselves, so
Okay.
I don't know if they are aware. I think Craig said that he was gonna be at another hearing tonight, so I don't know if he maybe missed.
Okay,
Hi, Sam. Craig
Oh,
Marshall
hi.
here. You're correct. I am going to be sneaking out shortly to another hearing. So Paul was here to cover for me if we got to this item too late. But no, we appreciate everyone taking the site walk. We don't have anything further to add.
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we've had a site walk. Are there any requests for additional information or plan amendments or content to this notice of intent?
No.
Okay,
Not for me.
hearing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye. TJ,
aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. All right, so any special conditions, Sam, on this one? I think everything was pretty clear cut.
Yeah,
Usual.
I don't think there was much of a need for anything specific.
Yeah.
The only real
Complete
question that we had
application.
going into the site walk was about the limit of work and the tree removal,
Right.
which ultimately ended up being a lot less than what it actually looks like on the site plan. The number of trees that's in that limit of work is even the stuff that is in there is pretty sparse and small.
Right.
And I think just approving the proposed plans, I don't think there was anything special that needed to be added to it.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, I'll entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 3 Main Street with the usual conditions.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. All those in favor, say aye. TJ,
aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, next public hearing is DEP file number 0501416, 8-10 Fordham Way, for work to raise and rebuild an existing structure. Sam, can you provide a project overview and a recommendation on this matter?
Yep, so this one it's actually 2 lots, that they're going to remove the structure from one lot. It's gonna be relocated. And there's gonna be some work done, some site work that's gonna be done, mitigation and things like that. We did get, late last night, we got an email from Pam Merrill, who is the DEP analyst working on this one. There are some pretty lengthy comments from them that I know Matt was going to touch on a little bit as we went through and make sure that, you know, everything's all set and get that all handled. We do not have anything new as far as plans go at this time. I think we're just gonna, there we go.
Okay.
Gonna see how things are looking right now, and then if see if the commission has anything else that they want to add or discuss. So
Okay, Matt, why don't you identify yourself and give us your best 10-minute presentation.
Yes, good evening. Matt Steinel from Millennium Engineering. I'm here tonight with the applicant, Mark and Teresa Ritchie, as well as their architect is also on the line, Andrew Sidford. I'll zoom in here on the left-hand side of the plan to give you an idea of what the existing current conditions look like. The existing residence that the Ritchies live in are at the top of the screen. It's number 10, this unit here. It's a single-family home. And they purchased the lot next door, which is a two-family home that is primarily covered by the structure and a large area of paved and concrete pad that kind of wraps around the building. What the Ritchies are proposing to do is to completely demolish this existing two-family structure, remove all man-made features such as the pavement and the concrete pads all the way around the structure, remove the slab foundation that the current structure sits on, and then to construct an addition to their primary residence. So it won't actually end up resulting in any new units. We're actually taking 2 units off the beach, which will help improve the parking and traffic situation down there. And then to perform some dune nourishment or dune restoration on other parts of the property where the disturbances previously existed from the prior development or the prior site features. We're proposing in the front here, we have an existing cobblestone driveway or parking area in front of the primary residence. The Ritchies would like to install an apron here in front of the addition that would match that with an additional cobblestone driveway there. Then to install a gravel surface below the structure. There would be a deck on the back side. You can see we have the limit of the natural heritage line shown here. So all the work is to stay outside of the natural heritage line. And then on the southern side of the structure, that's where the dune nourishment is to take place. So we've got several shrubs that are proposed to be planted. They're all off of the Coastal Zone Management approved plant list, including Virginia rose shrubs, northern bayberry shrubs, and a couple eastern red cedar trees. The green area, we have a mix here. We're proposing both American beach grass, but also quite prevalent on this end of the Plum Island. We have a lot of beach heather, and that's a nice low-lying shrub-like ground cover that has a real woody, thick root system that will help hold the sand in place. So they want to do a mix of the American beach grass and the beach heather. Pretty straightforward. The new structure is going to be up on piles. I do have on sheet 2 here a architectural rendering provided by Andrew Sidford, and we've applied the elevations to this to show compliance with zoning heights, to show that we're going to be up above flood, that the intent is to park under the structure, and to give you a general idea as to what the structure will look like once it's completed. We've also provided details for the plantings, and we've got a construction barricade fence detail here, as well as we intend to run that barricade along the bottom of the primary frontal dune here to make sure all contractors stay off of the primary frontal dune during construction. So that's a temporary orange fencing that will be removed. Now, DEP did have some comments. I've gone through most of these with the applicant, and for the most part, I think we're agreeable to making the majority of these changes. I think some of them may just need to be clarified. We indicated on the application that we've got about 50 cubic feet of dune nourishment, and they suggested that we need to add those contours onto the plan to show where we're bringing the sand in. That's not the case. We're not bringing in sand and building up the dune. What we're actually doing is filling the footprint of the old foundation to bring it back to the grades that are around us. So we're not proposing any new contours because we're not elevating the site. We're just bringing it back to grade once the foundation is removed from the hole. They also suggested that we need to provide the commission with the dune compatibility sieve analysis on the sand to ensure it's the right size, color, and spec to match what's on the beach. That won't be a problem. We can get that from the facility that's providing the sand and include that as well. They suggested that the site should have some additional snow fencing or sand fencing put in. We're happy to do so. It's on the ocean side of the primary frontal dune where we would install it if that's where they wanted it. Really isn't a requirement of doing this project because we're not impacting the primary frontal dune or impacting any existing vegetation. So it's a nice ask, and the applicant is willing to do it. However, it really has no impact on the proposed impacts on this site from the development of the house. They also indicated that the propane tanks that we have here should be removed from the dune restoration area. Well, again, this is not really a dune restoration area. We're planting. We're not building up the sand. We're not creating, an elevated dune here. And we need to put the propane tanks somewhere. And there's existing 4 propane tanks on site now, and we're reducing that down to the 2. But I want to actually have a conversation with Pam on this one before we make a change, because it makes no sense to put the propane tanks really anywhere else. You wouldn't put them far away from the structure and tunnel over. You wouldn't put them closer to the ocean. We don't want them, we don't really want anything closer to the ocean. And so right here in that front corner, kind of the furthest away from the ocean, next to the house, is really the ideal place for it. And we would just be planting around it, and then, a contractor coming in to fill those tanks would come right on the driveway and, right over to the tanks and fill them up right here with the least amount of impact. They wouldn't be walking all over the vegetation. It just makes sense that they go here. So I want to have a conversation with Pam and see if we can come to some agreement on that. There is a driveway for the adjacent property that's on the lot here a little bit, and there's a block wall. And Mr. Ritchie has no intention of changing their access or use to that driveway. They've been using it for a long time, and he wants to keep that use for them. But there's a block wall that is in between the area that we're restoring and the driveway, and DEP suggested that that block wall should come out. We obviously want to keep some type of separation here, and we'd originally planned to leave it in, but Mr. Ritchie's willing to remove that block wall, and in its place, he would like to put up like a 50% open fence just to provide that separation between us and the neighbors. 50% open fence is allowed on the Berry Beach, and it would be an improvement over a solid block wall that's essentially just, I think it's a 3 or 4 foot tall wall that's there currently. They asked us to elaborate more on the type of pile system that's being used. The intent here is to use driven piles. It's likely to be either a wood pile or a steel pile. It hasn't been determined exactly at this point because there's no point in spending money on a structural engineer to do the design if we can't get Conservation Commission approval to do the project. So we can definitively say on the record, as well as put it on the plan if they'd like a note, that the intent is for the pile system to be an open pile as they suggested. And they just pointed out that micro piles are not allowed. So worst case scenario is it would be driven piles for the primary structure, and then for the deck, it's either going to be the driven steel as well, driven wood, or a helical pile, because that can withstand the lighter load. Their only other comment really was adding some elevations to the cross section, and then they commented on the cobblestone pavers in the driveway, suggesting that they could be wave-thrown objects, and that they prefer gravel or crushed clamshell. And I do understand, their stance on this. I don't agree with it. I still believe that any wave that's capable of overtopping such a large mounded and armored structure as this particular primary frontal dune, if it's picking up these cobblestones, it's the first problem is it's removed the house from the foundation. There's no wave action coming over this that's going to have the energy to get under the pavers and lift them and cause them to be thrown. In this particular case, we feel that it's an improvement over what was there before because we have such a large paved area. So to go from pavement to cobblestone is clearly an environmental improvement. It increases the amount of drainage. And I really feel that it's, in this case here, not a real threat or a concern to become a wave-thrown object. So that's the one item out of the list that DEP came up with that Mr. Ritchie really feels strongly about keeping. He'd like to keep his cobblestone because he has it existing on this side and would like to have it match the way it blends in between the two properties.
Matt, let me stop you
That's it.
there and I'll ask you a couple of questions. Matt, the commission in the past has determined that there will be existing features on a fully developed barrier island like Plum Island that are grandfathered and you're entitled to maintain. My question is, what's the square footage on the hut top that you're removing versus the proposed cobbles that you want to put in? Is there a table there?
There is. So if I zoom up here, you can see we provided a table of man-made, non-compatible materials. So just the paved driveways and the concrete pad is almost 1,040 square feet.
All right,
And the cobblestone going in is 420. So we're cutting it more than in half.
okay. Okay.
Overall, though, I
Yeah,
was
no,
gonna say overall, you can see we
it's a
went
net
24.
improvement. It's a net improvement from all the hard structure you're removing and putting it on pilings. My other question before I open up to the members, on the existing block wall, what's the elevation on each side of that particular block wall you were describing, which is kind of a boundary? Are they similar in elevation on both sides, or is it stepped up or stepped down? Hence the reason
It's
for it.
similar in elevation. We have basically a paved area on both sides currently, and we're removing the pavement on one side, so it's similar in elevation currently, and afterwards it would remain similar. I actually have photos of the site. I could show you what it looks like.
Okay. Well, why don't I do this? I'm going to open this up to questions from the members. TJ, any questions for Matt on this project?
Yeah, Matt, can you go back to the square footage chart you had there? Is the total square footage of existing building being decreased as well in the new proposed construction?
So the footprint of the proposed structure is slightly larger, but keep in mind that that structure is now elevated and off the ground. So we have
Correct, okay,
2,400 square feet of stuff that's touching the ground now that's coming out, and only about 420 going back that's touching the ground. And then, the square footage of the piles themselves.
right. Okay,
Anything else, TJ?
nope, I'm
Okay.
good.
Thank you, TJ. Mick, any questions for Matt on this project? Mick, you may be muted if you have a question.
Okay, I always do that. No, my main concern was like the net delta from
Yeah.
what's impermeable now to what's gonna be impermeable to the new construction. And it seems like we have a net gain there. Other than that, yeah, just I think to clearly define what the pile system is gonna be in the final plan, that's I think the only outstanding issue.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions for Matt on this matter?
What was proposed to be underneath the house, like where the cars are gonna be parked?
Yes, so under the structure, and this actually DEP brought this up as well. They asked what was going to be under the stairs and under the deck. Currently, we just had that as a sand area, but to stabilize that area, we can do the same thing if they prefer that we're doing under the structure, which is a clean washed gravel parking surface. And so it'll be a wash stone.
Okay. And they have joined the two lots already? Because we're looking
Currently,
at
so
this,
there's
the square footage being the two lots.
correct, but that's the proposed. They haven't joined the lots currently because you can't do that while there are separate structures on them. You can only have one structure per lot. So until we get permission to demo it, they wouldn't go through the process of combining it.
In all honesty, once they're in common ownership in Massachusetts, they're merged by state law for two undersized lots anyway. So.
Okay.
Diane, any other questions? For
No, I
Matt?
mean, the utilities, I'm just looking at different comments just so we cover it.
Yeah.
There'll be new utilities, obviously. Going into the new structure. DEP
Most of
had
that
said-
would. I'm sorry.
It looked like
Most
they
of
were
the
looking for
utilities
plans.
that would go, most of the utilities that would go into the addition would be elevated up under the structure coming from the primary structure. We wouldn't have to excavate out to the road to make new utility connections. We already have those utilities in the primary building, and they would just run plumbing, they would run electrical, they would run off of the primary house.
Okay, overall, it looks like a net positive to me.
Okay, TJ, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Going to the generator, speaking of the utilities, can you focus in on the generator, Matt? So is that going to be a raised generator? Is that sitting on the ground? Is it propane fed or?
I guess
So
is
that's
it
an
a-
existing
yeah,
generator.
Okay, so that's existing, TJ.
But is it fed by propane there as well?
They do have propane tanks there, but Mr. Ritchie's on the line. He can tell you whether that feeds the generator or not.
Hi, Mark Ritchie here. resident of 10 Fordham Way. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate this. Let me turn my video on. Yeah, so the existing propane tanks that feed our heat system and our generator are on the north side of the building where the are on the south side of the building currently. So they'll have to be moved if we add the addition there. The generator, existing generator, is as where it's drawn on the north side of the building. So the existing propane tanks have to move because they fall within the new addition space. So if you scroll down there, Matt, a little bit, there's the generator.
I guess the question is this generator fed by propane or another fuel source?
Oh, I'm sorry. That generator is fed by the propane, by the propane tanks on the south side of the 10 Fordham, right?
And that will remain the same.
Well, that will remain the same, but they'll be then fed by the newly located propane. We're only gonna have one set of 2 propane tanks, and they'll be, hopefully located where Matt has them on the proposed site plan.
Yep, okay,
Okay.
very good.
Right. Team, any other questions before I open this up to public comment?
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah,
Bob?
certainly, Mark. Certainly.
Okay, so I did want to say that it's my understanding, and I have our architect here, but I believe this piling system will be a steel pile system vibrated into the sand as we built the main house. We are well into structural drawings, even though we don't have Concom, but we started to look at it just for design sake. And so we are assuming there'll be steel pilings. And I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but that was the intent.
Okay, Matt, I think, Matt, you have, excuse me, Mick, you have your hand up.
Yes, just a quick question, and I'm not sure if we normally condition this, just the demo plan. Where materials are gonna be staged and things of that nature, we don't get a good picture of that here, but if there's any special conditions that we need to make regarding demo, I mean, we're taking down a large building here, so.
No, I think that's a good point. Mark, don't you have a parking area directly across from your house, as I recall?
I have, yes, Bob, I have 2 parking areas. I have one directly across from the 10 Fordham Way, and then we have another even larger parking area on the opposite side of that central parking area on Southern Boulevard, where we can stage materials and, equipment, et cetera. But I haven't discussed exactly with my contractor, but I believe their plan is to probably selectively, to hand demo this property to save as much as possible for recycling. And we're trying to find someone to actually take as much of the usable house as possible. The whole
Couldn't
house.
find anybody to just lift it up and take it away, I guess.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. We are actually trying to find that, but I don't know if that's actually feasible.
Yeah. No, just something to consider. I'm sure we can condition, whatever.
Yeah,
arrangements you come up with.
I think Mick brings up a good point. Usually, Matt and Mick, we ask that you locate a staging area and we're gonna locate your dumpster. It's more for guidance for your contractor than anybody else. So would you be your existing parking? Can you point out the parking area, Matt, that is across the street from? I know where it is because I've seen it.
Okay, I believe it's over here in this area. Is it correct?
Well, you've got that gray area directly across the street.
Matt, the parking area is that's the parking area. And then if you continue towards Southern Boulevard, that big gray area there, then we also own that property. So
okay,
for staging, we could put a dumpster there. That's probably where we're going to put the dumpster, is there. But we'll talk to the Blue. We've worked well with them in the past in terms of being able to work through there. If we have to put a dumpster in their parking lot during the period, that's directly across the from our house, we'll do that. Whatever makes the most sense for the residents, our neighbors, et cetera. We want to make sure that we minimize any impact on any kind of traffic flow and our, just convenience of our neighbors.
Okay, Mick, you have any further questions?
No further questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions from the members before we open this up to public comment? TJ, you're all set?
Yep.
Diane?
I just want to, Andrew
I
Sitford.
just had one.
Yep.
I just-
Andrew, just please hold off. We'll recognize you when we open it up to public comment. Thank you. Diane, go ahead, dear.
I was just looking at the two plans and I know that there's a net, we're taking out a lot of the paved, to use, which offsets the cobblestones, but the cobblestones look like they're gonna be over parts that are not paved. Is the ground there just like, there's no vegetation or anything like that on it, right? It's just cleared ground? See in front of
That's correct.
the
So-
existing dwelling over here, it looks like, where the cobblestones are gonna go all the way down. Yeah, right there. Like, there's nothing there, right? Or is there?
That's concrete there right now.
Oh, it is. Okay, that's what I didn't know if only the dark was the concrete area. Okay.
That's just representative of the pavement on site, and the apron to get on site is the dark area.
Okay, so the cobblestones are going over concrete, or the concrete's being taken out, and cobblestones are being
Well,
put
there's
in.
that, yeah. There is that little
you got
bit
the
of sand right there.
And you got this little bit of an apron here, but the amount of little wispy grass here, this isn't like tall, healthy dune grass, beach grass. This is more like weeds that I'm sure were mowed and maintained and just knocked down. But even if you were to total that up, it doesn't even come close to the amount of vegetation we're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sam, we're gonna open this up to public comments. Do you have a list and order of how residents have joined the meeting?
I do. So we do have Andy Sidford with his hand up, and I had a couple questions as well, but I'll let Andy go first in case he answers any of them.
Okay, Andy, just give us your name and address for the
Yep.
record and ask your question.
Andrew Sitford, 30 Liberty Street in Newburyport. I'm the architect working with Mark, and I really just raised my hand to answer your question and his point that, yes, the pilings will be driven steel.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Sam, what are your questions?
So, and I know that we kind of touched a lot on the cobblestones and everything. So to DEP's point, we don't typically allow installation of new cobblestones. We do typically like to see it be pea stone or something like that, crushed shell, just because the stones don't meet the performance standards, which is something, I mean, we've denied other people doing that as well in the past. And even though there is something that's already existing that's cobblestone and that can stay, I can see a few issues with allowing, granted it is pulling up asphalt and that's great. But I can see some issues with allowing for that to be replaced with the cobblestone, especially since DEP has commented on it. One of my other questions about that area, Matt, can you go back down to that like kind of profile view where you were looking at like where the cars are? So how far past where the cars are going in and out is the cobblestone going to go? Is that going to go all the way to the edge of the building?
Sorry, I was muted. That's obviously not very clear in this profile view where the cobblestone is, but if you look on the first sheet, you can see that the intent is not to go out to the second bump out. It's the first bump out right here, that it stops there. So in profile view, we're talking about essentially right where this car here is parked. It's this bump out right here, it stops at.
All right, yeah, so that was one of my only concerns, is that if it was going beyond that, that it seemed a little bit unnecessary to have additional additional cobblestone past where the cars are gonna be entering and exiting. So that's good. I think that was the only other concern that I had about that. And then that aerial photo that you pulled up, or that aerial view that you pulled up, so that we could see where the parking areas are. So the one that's kind of off Southern Boulevard, is that kind of looks, at least from the aerial, that it might have some vegetation on it? Do you know if it does?
Let's see if I can show you. So it looks like it's kind of a mixture of grass and gravel parking area.
So my only concern with putting the dumpster out there is, again, typically we don't want people putting dumpsters and doing staging and stuff on top of areas where it's already vegetated. I know it's a little scrubby looking, and it looks like it's not really like a lot of dune grass and stuff like that, but we still try to kind of keep dumpsters and vehicle parking and staging, at least, especially like where, we're kind of looking at a long-term situation where it's, you're going through the whole construction process with it. I think it would be a little bit better to see that, at least have the dumpster staged in that area where it's already, you already have that cobblestone where it's not vegetated. The occasional parking and, very temporary, like a day or two staging of materials in this particular area, I don't think is that big of a deal. But having the dumpster out there all the time, I think is again, not something that we would typically let people do. Unless it's maybe that this kind of front edge wouldn't be quite so bad.
I
don't think that's going to be a problem.
So you
Yeah,
brought up a good point, Sam. Can we do this, guys? Can we go back to the site plan again?
And if I could comment quickly on that, Bob. we
Yeah,
have
sure, go ahead.
No problem, Samantha, putting the dumpster right on the, cobbled parking area directly across from our house would probably be more handy for the men.
Yeah, it'll make it a little bit more convenient for them.
No problem with that. We'll just park in the other area during the construction period. That's no problem at all.
So Mark and Matt, my question is, the green area that you've highlighted for replanting, there's absolutely no vegetation there now, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Zero.
So you could actually probably use that as your staging area for your dumpster and materials, probably more convenient.
Yeah.
And when you're done, you do your planting and
Good
it'll
idea.
probably have less impact.
That's a great idea, Bob.
Gravel.
So Matt, if you could just show on this plan, that area as a staging area for materials in your dumpster, with a notation that obviously it'll be replanted like this afterward. I think that probably gets us to a good point. Matt, Mick, you have your hand up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know Sam was talking about the paver system that's going to be out here, and I'm not an engineer, but I was just wondering if a permeable paver system was considered as opposed to a solid paver, or maybe that's what you have anyway, but just to give more permeability to those areas in front of the, where the cars are going to park.
It's a question.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not so much. It's not so much whether it's permeable or not. It's more that they can become projectiles if they get dislodged during a storm, and so they don't meet the performance standards. Plus, they're not considered a compatible material because they're not the same like size and shape. It's not like a natural material.
Okay.
Even though they're made of natural materials,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily considered to be a natural material, so they don't match up with the surrounding area. Whereas like the pea stone is a little bit more similar in size to something that you'd get out there. The crushed shell obviously is something that you see out there all the time. Plus, those things aren't going to become dangerous projectiles and go through someone's window more than likely.
Yeah. You know what? This question has come up before, and it was on the property in the corner of Southern Boulevard.
Yeah.
in Fordham Way. What was the name? What was that address?
That was 49 Southern, I believe.
Okay, so at 49 Southern, we had a spirited debate about this. And the commissions ultimately decided that as long as there was no net gain of pavers versus hot top, we were okay on that one. Where this is a dramatic reduction, I think we should be consistent. It's such a net gain here on eliminating impermeable surfaces that as long as we're not adding to it, you have a right to leave the hot top, which is far worse than the pavers. I think that was our thought. Diane, you were on the committee back then. Does that sound true, ring true to you, as how we were addressing pavement versus pavers?
Yeah, I mean, I recall that, I think there was more that they were replacing in the actual spaces where there was hot top, and the cobblestones were, I believe, going down actually where other things were being taken up. Whereas this here is going down, the cobblestones are going down in sort of different places than, you know, where other paved surfaces are being removed. But I mean, that being said, I think it does result in an overall better surface. You know, that was my recollection of the Southern Boulevard situation. But I mean, if both of these lots are taken together, and that's why I was asking, what would these cobblestones be going over? You know, that other area that Matt had put the cursor on there, because if that's concrete and they're taking it up, then it was sort of just a trade-off. I mean, obviously it would be wonderful if they would agree to just put the gravel down, but if, you know, if they're adamant and don't want to do that, I think it's still a trade-off of square footage of concrete versus pavers, and I'd rather see the pavers than the concrete.
Absolutely, I agree. It's we have a measurable net gain and permeable surface, so I think that's positive. I agree.
Okay, Sam, any question? Any members from the public have raised hands?
I do not see anyone else.
Okay, well, I'm going to circle back to the commission one more time. TJ, any follow-up questions on this matter?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Diane, any follow-up questions on this?
No.
And Mick, any follow-up questions on this?
No, thank you, Chair. I'm good.
Okay, now if I can just get to the right page here. All right, do we have a request for a site visit, additional information or plan amendment, or any additional content to the notice of intent?
No, I think the pictures were good.
Yeah, I think it was a good presentation. Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Sorry, do we, Matt, do you want the public hearing to get closed before you work out these comments with DEP in case anything needs to change?
No, good point, Sam.
And I know we
think-
had asked for a couple things to get added, a couple revisions to be made as well. Or I mean, they're mostly notes, but
I think the revisions that the commission has asked for are minor and could potentially be conditioned.
Yeah.
I do, however, I guess I'll leave it up to Mr. Ritchie if he wants to close the hearing tonight, or if he wants to give an opportunity to go and speak with DEP, understanding full well that the risk here is if we close the public hearing and we have to make changes, we would have to re-advertise it and come back. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is the board votes to approve this potentially tonight, and if DEP doesn't like it, they appeal it.
What is the pleasure of the applicant?
Geez, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess the prudent thing is to go back to the DEP and make the changes, satisfy them. I'm a little concerned with what they're gonna their stance on the cobbles is going to be. And, you know, that is not a deal breaker for us. We think it would enhance the property, you know, the design, and it certainly would make for better entry to the parking. I'm concerned with the way that the edge of the paved public road deteriorates so badly without a hard edge there, and then plowing, and we see it on other areas. And so this was to try to just, you know, obviously continue the design of the existing cobbles, but make a nice landing there and an entryway for our underneath parking. But I guess after saying all that, I want to be prudent here, so I think we should probably go back to the DEP, Matt, and resubmit a revised drawing, and then
Yeah, so we would request a continuance to the October 17th meeting if that was the case, and we would take this time to try to resolve some of those issues with DEP so we can come back to you with a final plan that addresses both the commission's concerns and as many DEP concerns as humanly possible.
Okay. So, team, the applicant is requesting a continuance of the public hearing to October 17th. I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to October 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, all in favor, say aye. TJ,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
thanks, Bob. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys.
Okay, now where does that take us? Okay, 18 Fordham Way. So DEP file number 0501409, 18 Fordham Way. Applicant has requested a continuance to October 17th. Entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to October 17th.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, we'll take
Second.
that as a second and a motion. All those in favor, say aye. TJ,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
Bob Connors votes yes. All right, it is now 7 o'clock. Now, Sam, I know is our next public hearing is I think we'll all remember this was DEP file number 0501386, 330 3rd Street for work to install a driveway to provide on-site parking with associated site work, including work within the 33rd Street right-of-way. Tim, is anyone here to speak for the applicant?
So I can see the applicant, and I can see some other people that were involved in the project, some of the abutters, and there is Tom Hughes with some impeccable timing tonight. Telling you, I think it's that he's got some ESP or something. He knows we were talking
Okay.
about him. Tom, you
Okay.
have incredible timing.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know if he can hear us yet.
Okay, so
You have
Tom,
very good timing, Tom.
so what I want to do is, obviously, this matter, it came before the commission. It was continued for a relatively long period of time. And there were a number of communications that I just want to identify and have part of the record so that we don't have to enter them in word for word. We had received a number of objections from the abutters attorney. There was an email dated August 16th, 2022. There was a letter from Buckman and Associates dated July 16th, 2022. Another letter from Buckman and Associates dated September 20th, 2022. There was a Fish and Wildlife letter dated August 8th, 2022. And the most recent letter from Buckman Associates dated 10/2/23. And we had a response, we received a response from the applicant addressing the objections raised by the abutter dated 9/28/23. So I think that becomes part of the record with those documents. So Tom, take it away.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, you said there was a piece of correspondence from 10/2/23?
There was a letter we received on 10/2 that Sam had forwarded us today.
So it was, I sent it to you guys on yesterday, on Monday, but we did receive it on Thursday, I believe. So
Okay.
it came in to me on Thursday. I was out of the office already by the time it came in.
Yeah, it's dated October 2nd, 2023. That's how I referenced it.
The one
Right.
from
No,
Tom.
understood. I'm just looking to see if, okay, it did come in this afternoon. So I've been out of the office. So I've not seen it, but I will.
Oh, sorry. So yes, so Tom, that's the one that Attorney Medea had sent over.
Right.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the one that Tom had sent. That got sent
Okay.
on Thursday.
Right.
And I sent it out to you guys yesterday.
Okay.
Her letter was
Yeah.
dated from yesterday. We received it today.
All right. No. So fair enough. So I'm Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting here on behalf of the family that makes up Sea Shanty LLC and owns the property at 330 3rd Street. With me tonight, Chip Nyland is the attorney on the project. He's available for any questions should we need to refer to him. And I believe there are members of the family here as well, including Beth Quinn and Ann Cataldo, her sister, and I think there's some others as well. So the project, as the commission may recall, is about replacing the parking that for 70 years was in the 33rd Street right of way. And what we have proposed, which is in accordance with the provisions of the bylaw, is 2 9x18 parking spaces and a short drive to allow for navigating in and out of that, in addition to some improvements to 333rd Street. In your record, you have the approval of the select board for the work within the right of way. And that is just a property permission essentially for doing the work in the right of way. And the proposed drive and parking includes a perimeter drip trench to provide some additional stormwater that you don't typically see on a single family home driveway. Overall, we impact between the right of way and the area of the drive, we impact about 640-ish square feet of vegetated dune, and we mitigate with I think it's 1,100 square feet of dune plantings in the dune. This is a project that is allowable, and you guys have approved multiple driveways in the coastal dune in the past, both on their own and as part of construction of a single family home. And your bylaw actually has a provision that excludes up to 2 9x18 parking spaces for a house in the V zone from being considered development or redevelopment, which, as the commission I think is aware, development and redevelopment are prohibited under the bylaw. But you have to look at how they're defined. I can pour through the regulatory structure and all that, but I think it's well laid out in both the notice of intent and further clarified in our correspondence on the 28th. And rather than eating up the commission's time, I think what I'd like to do is just see if the commission would like me to do that. You did do a site visit. I know there are some new members, but we have renoticed this. So I'm happy to talk about any more of the record, but assuming everybody has looked at the record as it exists, I don't think any of the members are precluded from acting on it because we have renoticed this and we are essentially reopening a hearing. But
Okay, Tom, why don't I do this? Why don't I open up to questions from the members? TJ, why don't I start with you? TJ, were you on the original site inspection on this one?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I was on it when we went there. A lot of my questions are more legalities rather than conservation. As far as just reading some of the letters, especially this one that we just got today, is the driveway where it's proposed not on the applicant's property, or part of it not on the applicant's property? I didn't quite get that 100%. Or will there cause a taking of the land?
Well, the project is entirely located within the 33rd Street right of way and on the applicant's property.
Tom, you know what may be helpful? Put up the site plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the letter that I just opened that I had, hold on a second. I'm sorry, give me a minute to, there we go. All right, so that's the project site. That's the location. Flood map, we're in the VE 16. There's a project, so you can see 33rd Street here.
yeah,
And the work is within 33rd Street as surveyed, not as the assessor lines show. And also in this portion of the property right here. So let me keep going down till I get to the site plan. That's the end of the finished portion of 33rd Street. You have some Rosa rugosa. It's also intertwined with bittersweet. Neither plant is native. And in the Northeast region, DEP tends to consider Rosa rugosa an invasive plant. And throughout the state, folks consider the bittersweet to be invasive.
Tom, your site plan is stamped.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I just breezed by. You can see the stamp is on the right.
Mhm.
So here is the improvement to 33rd Street. Here is the proposed parking area. And there is the split rail fence shown, which is a foot inside the property line. So the property line, as determined by survey, is right here. And so the entire project is located within the applicant's property or on the 33rd right away.
Okay, TJ, any other
Okay.
questions for Tom at this point?
not right now. I'd like to hear some other questions and
Yeah, I'm gonna
points.
circle back. I'll
Yeah.
circle back with everyone.
Yeah.
Diane, any questions for Tom on this project?
Yeah, we did go to the site visit and all that, and the way I look at it is, they have to get off the street. And I know it's been proposed that they can park on the street. My understanding is that 24-hour, 24/7 parking is not allowed, according to the bylaws of Newbury. So to me, although that's been suggested, isn't a true alternative. Where the site is, Tom, is there any better place for it? I don't see it. The parking, I mean, I know, and it appears as though, it's allowed. I know that it's a may and not a shall, but if they have to get off the street and they can't park on Northern Boulevard or 33rd, I don't really see where else they're gonna go.
Yeah, there's not anything really any more reasonable for them. I mean, this is a family that, while there's a younger generation, this was Beth and Ann and the folks who own this was their parents. And none of them are getting any younger. And so to have them have to walk from Northern Boulevard when they're at their property is kind of a lot, especially when for 70 years they've been parking, within the right of way. And when the town asked them to stop, rather than looking to fight that or see whether or not there were any prescriptive rights they could claim, they opted to try to cooperate with the town and come in with some off-street parking, which is what has been proposed. So given that this commission and other commissions throughout the state have not pushed for, is there any alternative available on things like this? It's just, is there a reasonable way to do it with less impact? And in this case, not really. We can't reduce the impact of the parking because, we have to have enough room to be able to safely navigate out facing forward. Putting this in, I mean, in the past, people did back out on the street, but that's pretty unsafe to be backing out onto Northern Boulevard. And this is an area where the dune is already impacted by the presence of the existing homes on either side of it. Basically, this cuts off a lot of the winds. You actually have sumac growing within a primary frontal dune in this area, and the reason it's growing there is because the winds are sheltered. And I think those of you who live on Plum Island, you think where you see sumac growing on Plum Island, it certainly isn't typically on the primary frontal dune, and that's because there's usually too much sand movement. So in this area, the dune function is already curtailed somewhat. So, we're impacting vegetation here, and we're going to be improving dune function in our planting area here with the additional plants. So,
what is the proposed square footage of the parking on the applicant's property?
on the applicant's property, the total alteration and the square footage of parking are 2 9x18s. There's a little bit of run-up drive. The total vegetative impact on the applicant's property, give me a second, let me just confirm my number here. It's 466 square feet on property and 310 in the right of way.
What's that?
466 square feet are on property. That includes the parking, the drip edge, and the drive portion of that driveway. And then 310 is for the work within the right of way to improve it so that you can actually get in and out of that driveway.
Okay, Diane, any further question? I'm going to circle back once more to everyone too.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's basically it. I realize that it's not ideal for the neighbors and I understand their complaints, but I just don't see there being an alternative because I'm sure the opponent's attorney will speak to it, but I don't see parking on the street as being an alternative because this whole thing started because they're trying to get them off the street. So that's it for me for now.
Okay, Mick, questions?
No, Tom, maybe I'm not seeing it on the plan. What's the proposed surface?
It's a gravel surface.
Okay, so it's not bit.
Yeah, it's a compatible, dune compatible material.
Yeah, so I'm just getting familiar with this project, so that's my only question. I will sit back, listen and learn. It's my first exposure. Thank you.
Okay. TJ, I'm going to circle back to you. Actually, let me go back to Sam. Sam, you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. The only comment I guess that I would really make is that generally speaking, the parking areas I believe are it's not something that needed to go through zoning or anything like that. I don't believe this ever had to go through the zoning board. So it's not something that's not allowable. It is something that's written into our bylaw that we can permit having these parking spaces put in so long as they meet the performance standards. And I mean, as far as I can tell from the design and everything, and there's plenty of mitigation that's being put in. As far as I can tell, it looks like they are meeting the performance standards. So I guess that would really be my only comment on this one. And I don't really have any questions about it.
Okay, thank you, Sam. TJ, I'm going to go back to you. Do you have any follow-up questions?
I don't.
Okay, Diane, any follow-up questions?
Not at this point.
All right, Mick, anything to add before we open this up to public comment?
No, sir, I am good. Thank you.
Okay, Sam, we're going to open this up to public comment. Who will be the first one? I see Jamie's hand is up.
Yep.
Okay, Jamie, welcome. I read into the record the number of communications and your objections. I hope you heard those.
I did, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Just so we would create the proper record.
I appreciate that. I'll try to avoid repeating unnecessary things from the past, but where you do have some new members, if you'll allow me, I'll
Wait,
cover.
sorry, can you just introduce yourself and your affiliation, just for the record?
Of course. Jamie Buchanan Medea. And it's actually Jamie Medea, but I put the Buchanan in because my firm is Buchanan and Associates. And then after I married, I changed my name to Medea. Jamie Medea, and I represent, I don't know how you can get me to show on the screen, but I represent the abutters who own on the downflow side of this proposal, literally downstream from the flooding and across the right of way. So that's the, let's just call them the Morris abutters. Okay, will that suffice?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir. All right. I would like to, unless all of you have seen the pictures that are in today's letter, I wonder if you could share screen just to show the pictures. Is that all right with you?
No, I think that's certainly.
Thank you.
Jamie, do you want to do that, or do you want me to open it up?
If you just let me share screen, that's all I need.
Yep, you should be able to. I don't think I
Okay.
need to give you permission.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, I think that tells you a little more than a black and white plan, what this actually is. This is the area proposed for 2 parking spaces, a fully vegetated, protected resource area, every bit of it. I did, just to be fair, I enlarged this picture from your printed version. This is looking up the right of way. This is the area to be changed in the proposal. This is the coastal dune to be completely removed. And I think I have one more picture of relevance to you. Hold on. Yeah. That's the 5 cars as they used to park. And the reason I raise that is one talks
Can we see
about, sorry?
The picture of the 5 cars.
Sure.
What?
You got that one?
No, you know what?
No.
You're kind of
Oh.
mid-screen on that one.
Let's see if I can do that. If not, I'm clicking onto it, but the only relevance is to show you that there are 5 cars associated with visitors to this house or this structure. And I do understand the temptation to call it a family home because it remains in the hands of people that have been passed down. But the people who are visiting on a regular basis are not family members. They're large groups, and it's like an Airbnb, and it's not for a limited period. That's not your issue, other than that we have legal issues with how this property is treated. What I'm here to speak about is the Conservation Commission issues. I respect your work. I respect your precision, and I actually really respect how you've been handling these meetings. It's nice to see. But allow me to emphasize that it's simply not true that this project meets the performance standards. It flatly does not meet the applicable performance standards under either your local ordinance, your bylaw, or under the Wetlands Protection Act. How could it? It's completely destroying a coastal dune. And the suggestion that in a completely off-site area, maybe physically, technically on their site, but completely separate from this area here, that has nothing to do with flood control, nothing to do with the reestablishment of vegetation for all the wildlife that actually is quite extensive here. They get birds, they get, dozens of birds, foxes, rabbits, all kinds of vegetation. It's been very well established and unchanged for years. So they're not meeting the performance standards. On the land subject to coastal storm flooding, they haven't addressed the compaction of the ground. and its ability to absorb in this exact area. The compaction. I heard them say they're going to do gravel. Gravel gets very easily compacted down, and it does not have the ability to handle flood waters underneath with the weight of cars. Plus, they're proposing 2 cars. A very simple alternative is they only get 1 car. But besides that, they don't need them. They haven't had them all these years. They're not entitled to them. And your mission is not to provide for parking for long-standing homes. There are streets on each side and they can park on Northern Avenue. I understand, Madam, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. It's Diane. I got your first name, but I'm sorry I didn't know
Okay.
your last name.
Diane's fine.
Thank you. I understand the desire to help someone, provide for more parking. They can park on Northern Avenue, and they've been doing that, or Northern Boulevard, excuse me. They've been doing that all summer. And I don't believe it's the old people who go to this house, respectfully, seasoned people who go to this house that are having problems. It's the large groups, and the price is better if you can rent it with parking or sell it with parking. We also haven't heard where they're planning on storing their materials, how they're planning on doing the work, how they're planning on doing the maintenance. None of that's on the record. DEP, I notice, has referenced that they have technical comments, but there are none posted on your website. So no technical comments yet, unless somebody's not providing them. I haven't saved any from the past. It also says on DEP's website for this, I noticed Chip Nyland is here. He understands the EEA website. The notice of intent shows there are 1,640 square feet to be altered and 0 being replaced. So they don't apparently think of this alleged mitigation as making up for the utter obliteration of the dune. Finally, as Diane emphasized, I know you all understand, but allow me to put it on the record. It states in the State Act that it may be permitted, not that it shall. And this is not a brand new home. This is something that's been around and is being used for commercial rental purposes. It is not a brand new home. It does not have to be approved. I think we all agree it does not have to be. The question is whether you want to do it anyway. And respectfully, denying a brand new parking space for an existing structure is what is routinely done by DEP. I disagree with Tom Hughes. DEP does not routinely allow for mitigation of limited vegetative impacts on coastal dunes, not in these areas and not on these vulnerable places. Destruction of dune is not routinely granted. Conservation laws are for conservation. They are not economic improvement for resale. You've got other boards that do the economic improvement issues. It's a well-established root system in the area. The proposal for mitigation planting doesn't address the loss in this area. Coastal bank, we believe, should be included due to the slope. Tom disagrees. I also want to emphasize that attempts to deflect attention by referencing either me personally, as was done in the letter, or other properties or projects previously, that's not the point. Every site is different, and some of the references that Mr. Hughes made were to things that were built before my clients even owned their property. So they're completely irrelevant, even if it was an attempt to snag us in there. I think you all know that. MEPA review, we all agree. MEPA review is going to be required. If you approve this without any changes, it will be appealed to DEP and a MEPA review will be required. And then the alternatives analysis will be considered and the court will be looking at the bylaw and they will be looking at the rationality. It's just irrational under conservation laws to destroy existing resources and put in 2 new parking spaces. Especially one of you asked about the property. Thank you. I think it was Mr. Conti, TJ. The property rights issue is they're using an out-of-date survey, and I think even they agree that once they put up fencing on their side and on the adjacent side, it's a 10-foot right-of-way with about a foot to each fence. And you think Diane was concerned or Tom was concerned about safety in and out of Northern Avenue. Imagine trying to turn around on a 10-foot right-of-way with 2 parking spaces and only having 10 feet to do it in. Plus, they're on our property. They're on my client's property. with the survey. So on a procedural matter, we've asserted before, they should have had our signature and the town's signature on this application, and they don't. We also think the application is too old. They should have started fresh. I know you believe you have with the notice, but some of your site member, your voters have not seen the site. And we believe there are availability of alternatives. So finally, and thank you for your patience for listening to me. There's no entitlement to altering a dune, a barrier beach, or a land subject to coastal storm flowage for an existing structure's brand new parking space. It may not improve their property values to not have one, but it's done all over Plum Island and all over under conservation laws. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And of course, I'll answer any questions you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. So Tom, do you or Chip want to respond to the questions raised by Jamie?
So Tom, maybe I could take care of this is Chip Nyland, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I could address the legal matter.
Okay, thank you.
That Jamie has raised. So for the record, Richard, I go by Chip for a long time.
Hi, Chip. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Jamie. And I'm representing the applicant here. So I think with respect to property rights, I think Jamie is well aware that that's not an item that conservation commissions get involved with other than to get the signature of the owner. That's clearly a requirement, but your order of conditions states that an issuance of an order of conditions doesn't convey any property rights, and specifically even cites a case right in the standard order of conditions that says that conservation commissions don't get involved in property rights. You look at what the impacts are on projects and on properties, but you don't get involved in property rights. If there's a question in terms of an overburdening of an easement or who owns what, according to the survey, well, that can be taken care of outside, but your lane is to look at what the impact is of the project on the resource areas. The interesting piece when we're looking at coastal dune, and I'm going to turn that over to Tom in terms of the performance standards, but what the performance standards look at is what I call apples to apples, which is when you're looking at the performance standards, you look at how is the dune functioning today versus how is it going to function afterwards. I think that Tom has made a good case within the document that presently, it has a limited function just in terms of the location sheltered by the house. So when you're looking at driveways that may be in dunes, I think a lot of times the reason that they are approved is because they are not adversely affecting a dune. This is not a dune that's in a wide open expanse that's subject to wind and water, and the commission is very concerned about destabilizing by removing the portions of the dune or the vegetation. That's not what's taking place here because it's sheltered. And in addition, even though the department may not see it as a mitigation, we clearly are creating dune as well so that we aren't, and we're not destabilizing it. So when you take a look at those functions, that's very important. Second, with respect to stormwater, and I think that Tom has pointed this out in the notice of intent as well as in the subsequent filing, you're not required in a single family house. Everybody knows that on this commission. You're not required to provide stormwater management, but we have with an infiltration area as well as with the gravel. So any suggestion that what we're doing is going to have some impact on the dune or next door, I don't think just passes the straight face test because we have provided that inside. I guess the last one with respect to MIPA, we're satisfied, and I think as the council on the commission stated, we don't see there as any really practicable alternative other than where we are. And if we have to do that through MIPA, then we will do that through MIPA. And then finally, in terms of it being too old, well, this really was a start over. We filed the notice, and the notice has been filed. Everything had been incorporated. We re-noticed everybody and sent everybody information. So as far as I'm concerned, we have started fresh. There's been a lot of time, Mr. Chairman, that's passed since we've been in front of you previously. So I think those, Tom, if I missed anything, you can let me know. But I think those hit the majority of the issues that Jamie had raised, and why we believe, while yes, there is no specific entitlement, I think in this instance we meet the performance standards to go forward.
Okay, thank you, Chip. Tom, do you want to address the wetland issues that were raised by Jamie?
Yeah, I'm gonna share screen again, if that's okay. I'd like to just, let's take a look at a couple things. One is, this is the property that's currently owned by the neighbor. And you can see in 2015, a well-vegetated back slope of the primary frontal dune that's unobstructed out to the ocean. And you can see in 2019 that a much larger than 2x19 parking space area was put, again, within this well-vegetated section, the primary frontal dune. And we're not looking to do something that expansive. We're looking to do something that's far more modest and fully replicate for that work. This is an area that in earlier correspondence, after one of the family members had a wedding there, there was some trampling that occurred underneath a homemade arbor, and that area is fully restored at this time. This is a picture of the vegetation that we would be impacting in the right-of-way. And when you zoom in on it, this right here, you can see right here is bittersweet. This is invasive plants. These things do not provide an awful lot of dune function. And where we're replicating, and let me get back to the site plan, where we're replicating is actually a more valuable portion of the primary frontal dune. When I look in general, when you're looking at plants on a dune, typically the further you are towards the ocean, the more valuable those plants are. If I were impacting here and planting back at the street, it would be hard for me to argue that my impact was offset by this mitigation. But in this case, my impact is in a sheltered area of the dune where the dune, and we are not disputing it's well vegetated. It's well vegetated with some overgrown planting beds, with some areas of what I consider overgrown remnant lawn. There is some dune grass and there's some sumac in the area. We've not disputed whatsoever that this is vegetated, nor that portions of this area are vegetated. But we are fully mitigating for that in these sand areas up here in a way that will improve dune function. The American beach grass that will be planted serves to do a number of different things. One is the blades of the grass cause the wind to slow down and drop sediment, building up the dune in its volume and elevation. And they also, as they get buried, they grow upwards, extending roots as they go. And over time, those roots build and develop and help hold the dune together during a large storm event. You don't get that same kind of root growth and root impact with the type of vegetation that we're impacting in these areas. So with regard to all of those things, I think we clearly meet the performance standards, and this commission deals with the performance standards meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Many of you have been applicants in front of this commission before you ever joined the commission. And had you been faced with the neighbor's attorney's interpretation of the Wetland Protection Act or the bylaw, your projects probably would not have been approved. And I think there's a level of reasonableness that goes in interpreting the bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act that is recognized by not just this commission, but by DEP and by the MEPA office. I've certainly been through MEPA on other dune projects, and if we have to go here as well. But, you know, we're not looking to do anything that the neighboring property didn't already do. And we're just trying to provide for a couple parking spaces for what really is a family-owned property that is used by different generations of the same family. And is it rented, you know, up to 12 weeks a year? Yes. But it is a family property, and this family would just like to move on and be able to park their vehicles and use their property in peace. So with that, I'm happy to answer any further questions. But I think this has gone on for quite some time. So unless there's additional information the commission would like, I think we'd like to move you guys to a vote.
Okay, Tom, I have one question. I'm just reading our bylaw here, and I'm gonna read it out loud. For those properties do not have an existing parking area or parking area of lesser size, construction of 2 parking spaces that are no more than 9 feet by 18 feet per space, provided that there is no other area for parking on the property, and provided further that the surface of the parking area is pervious and that the construction complies with all the performance standards set forth in the commission's regulations and CMR 310, 10. So my question is, the bylaw gives you 2 spots, 9 by 18. That gives you a total of 324 square feet for parking, but you're proposing 466. How do we address that within the bylaw?
Yeah, so within the bylaw, what that's referring to is the parking spaces themselves, and the parking spaces are shown in these rectangles here. In order to be able to get out of parking spaces, if we put them right here, we end up having to go further up the dune with alteration in 33rd Street to provide enough room to turn around and get out. And this is driveway and not parking. And we're happy to accept a condition that, you know, no more than 2 cars can park there. But this is really 2 parking spaces and enough drive to be able to do it, while limiting how far up here we have to go. And we did have the engineer look, and his opinion is if we make this any shorter, realistically over time, cars are going to back out beyond the improved section of that, and they're going to impact it anyway. So we've tried to do a very honest, you know, impact as small as possible. And and then the other impact that we have here is for this drip edge. You know, if the commission wants to have us not manage stormwater, we're happy to not manage stormwater and just, you know, remove that element of it. But the commission has, on other projects, allowed the parking and some level of driveway to get to those spots.
Okay.
I'd also
Jamie,
point out, Mr. Chairman, that there's similar language in the Wetland Protection Act that allows projects that are accessory to single-family homes, including driveways, that's and parking, which is specifically mentioned in that paragraph.
Okay. Jamie, before I go back to you, Sam has her hand up. Sam, what questions or comments do you want to add to this discussion? You're on mute, Sam, if you're...
Yes, I am. I just wanted to note on kind of going off of Chip's comments about the property lines and everything. So as a commission, when we receive signed and stamped plans that show property lines, we have to assume that that is correct. The plans that we receive, we have to assume that those are correct with the property lines. That is an engineer or a surveyor putting their reputation on the line saying, this is what I found, this is what I believe to be correct. So we have to assume that it is. If there is at any point a disagreement about property lines, even if, say, an applicant came in with their own surveyed engineered plan showing different property lines, we have to assume that the one that we received with the application is correct. Anything supplemental that comes from the applicant, we can't really do anything with that. That has to be something that gets taken to land court. So the property boundary issue, frankly, it's not even something that we should really be talking about at this point. It's been discussed. It was discussed the first time around with the hearings. It's not something we can do anything about. We have to assume that this OCG plan is the correct property line. And if the abutters want to take the applicants to land court over the property boundaries, that's something they have to do separately to our process.
Yeah, and I think we're all well aware of that, Sam, and hence my question, was it a stamp plan and properly signed? So, Jamie, you've been waiting patiently, and I know Chip has all of the answers you're looking for.
Of course he does. Well, I'm surprised I've been patient. I'm pleased with myself. Thank you. And Samantha, I agree. with your description. And I also agree with what Chip said in a codicil, a fancy legal word for under his breath that he said out loud also, that it's not a question of you determining property rights. It's a matter of the work is proposed to be done on our client's property, including the destruction of the dune and the flooding downstream to our client's, my client's property in that tiny space in between the two buildings. And what makes this different, onto a new point, what makes this different from what both Chip and Tom are saying is that the dune in that area serves multiple functions, not just this sand flow function that you all are talking about. The requirement is no adverse effect, and it's not just removing sand from the dune. It's not modifying the dune. It would increase the potential for storm or flood damage, and that's exactly what this does. And it's not disturbing the vegetative cover so as to destabilize the dune. And that's, again, exactly what it does. It destroys it. It's a complete deflection to send people off to look at the sheepy-sized thing off in another area on the plan. What's relevant is the destruction of the dune for those functions in this extremely close and important location to two actual residences. Thank you for doing that, Sam. Do you want me to show, or do you want to show the image again? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I think that was Tom's screen that was being shown. So but you can share yours if you'd like to.
It's all right. I think you've already seen it. You're smart crowd. It's very close quarters between two properties that have been this way for a long time. The dunes developed for a long time, and the sand issue isn't the point, although it's relevant. The important thing is the other functions protected for coastal dunes as performance standards. It has no adverse effect. That's 310 CMR 10.28, 3 through 6. And this is impossible to meet no adverse effect when you're taking it all down and putting nothing back again for vegetation. It also, that doesn't even address the habitat. You're supposed to be addressing any otherwise identified bird nesting habitat. And although you're not an endangered species, they're close enough by, and we sent you photographs of all the many birds in this area. That was the main point I wanted to make, and I can't resist Chip Nyland's apples to apples. This is apples. The apples are in the performance standards. It's not an apple salad. I mean, it's not just apples. It's all of the fruits listed of the benefits of dunes. I think that's all I needed to say in response. And I'm sorry about land court. If we have to go to land court, that's where we'll be, because you're using very old survey information. You're not showing that what you're destroying as part of your project is our property.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And
Well, thank you.
Again, when it comes to land use, that's just outside our domain. And,
Understood.
I think all you learned attorneys can figure that out. I'm going to go around to the commission one more time for any follow-up questions, and then I'll go back to Tom, Chip, and Jamie for a wrap-up and see what action the committee wants to take. TJ, do you have any follow-up questions for either
I do not.
Jamie or Tom?
I do not.
Okay, thank you, TJ. Diane, do you have any follow-up questions for Tom, Chip, or Jamie at this point?
I just had one of Jamie, because you had said repeatedly that they can park on the street, and I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something here. Can they park on the street?
I was told that, yes, you can park all night on the street with a sticker, and that's what's been happening all summer long.
Yeah, because there was the Newberry bylaw has, it's 93-15, has dates and times restricted, that even if it's permitted, that you can't park on any motor vehicle between 12 midnight and 6 a.m. on any street, whether posted or not, between December 1st and April 1st.
I can't.
So, I mean,
say
and
anything,
you
but
know,
I'm
I'm
told
just
is
trying to figure out.
everybody in the area has
alternatives?
stickers,
Yep.
Including people who are renting property. They use stickers. They
So
get.
Jamie, all discussions go through the chair.
Oh, my
Good to
apologies.
hear.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So
May I?
Diane, you want to, well, hang on, Diane, you want to finish your comment?
No, it's just a point again, you know, I've read everything. I see what everyone's saying, but I just don't see there being an alternate site when I don't think that parking on the street is allowed. If I thought maybe Jamie had something that might indicate otherwise, because you know, you keep saying that they can park on the street, and I can't see that they can.
Okay. Jamie, do you have any comment on that?
Just quickly that, yeah, we'll provide the photographs of all the parking all night on the street. They get stickers, and I think it's through the chief of police.
Oh, I mean, okay.
Yeah, the bylaw speaks for itself that it doesn't allow overnight parking during snow season, which is December
Oh.
1st through, okay,
Mhm.
which, but
Oh,
again,
well, yeah.
it's a point made.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Okay, Diane, any other questions?
No.
Mick, you have any questions for this group?
I'm not familiar with the property, Chair, so I think I'm gonna just refrain from my questions to learn a little bit more and maybe take a look. I don't know if somebody would, Stam, if you want to meet me out there someday next week, before I ask any, pointed questions, I'd like to see it.
Okay, Sam, you have any follow-up questions or any comments you want to interject?
Nope, I'm more than happy to, if we want to set up a site visit, I'm more than happy to, we can either set one up with everyone or, I can go out individually with people. I will note that I'm leaving, very, very early tomorrow morning to go on vacation. I'll be available virtually as much as I'm able to, but I'm not coming back. I'm not going to be back in the office until, next Thursday, but I will be physically in the office on Thursday if we want to try to set something up at that point.
Yeah, like I said, I'm unfamiliar with the property, so I don't feel it's fair for me to ask, directed questions. So I'd like to see it myself.
Okay, all right, so team, I think Nick, you just answered my question. Do any members have requests for a site visit or additional information or plan amendment or additional content to this notice of intent? And your question, you answered the question, yes, you'd like to have a site visit.
I would, yes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, may I ask one more question?
Yeah, certainly, Jamie.
Thank you. As long as you're doing a site visit, could you ask to have the stakes confirmed?
Which stakes you're talking, the property line stakes?
Where the work's to be done, and does it correspond to what they have on their plan for where everything's laid out? I'm afraid that may have been altered, and it'd be useful for you, especially when you're talking about movement in the right of way and taking down the end of the right of way, the dune there. It'd be useful to see the staking.
Okay. Tom, could you double check and see if there's any existing staking still in place?
So there are stakes out there, and not all of the stakes are property line stakes. They're
Okay. Yeah.
survey control stakes. I mean, that's just additional expense for the applicant that I think is unnecessary. We show a plan. The plan is stamped. I'll note that the neighbor's attorney in her first letter indicated they would shortly follow with their own survey. That's never been submitted. And I believe the reason is because we're clearly, we have a stamped plan done by a surveyor. I
Okay.
do want to note can I just respond quickly to the dune function? And rather that I can go through this, but I went through in detail the dune functions that are protected on pages 12 and 13 of the letter that was submitted on Friday. And
your response was very detailed, Tom.
yeah, and I think
usual.
that we preserve dune function, and DEP recognizes that gravel is a compatible dune material, and during a storm it behaves as sand, and compatible with sand. So again, I really think this is a very simple project that that the neighbor is trying to make sound far more complex than it is.
Yep. Well, I think the matter before the commission now is Mick has requested a site visit, Tom, and there's 4 of us present. Someone wants a site visit, and I'm going to recommend that a continuance be asked for so we can have a site visit and move this continued to the October 17th meeting. And now it's your prerogative, but we have a member that hasn't been able to see the site. No one questions the notice and all that, but it's not uncommon that a site visit and this matter would be.
No, I understand. It had been my intent to close the hearing tonight and seek a vote, but I think we've got a member who's unfamiliar with it, and I think we will be looking for a vote on the 17th. I'll make that clear, but we'd be happy to accommodate that, set up a site visit in the interim, and for any members who either want to re-see the site or who have not seen it, and then
Okay,
we'll look to come in, and I would ask that perhaps the conservation agent for that meeting could at least prepare a draft decision, so we don't have to wait for the authoring of a decision for too long
Yeah.
after the
I don't think any presumption should be made at this stage. That's why we
Sure.
have votes, so. What I'm going to suggest is the applicant going to request a continuance to allow a site inspection?
Yes,
Yes,
we'll
Chairman,
request that
we'll-
continuance.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So the applicant has requested a continuance to the October 17th meeting to allow a site visit of the members. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing until October 17th?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
All those in favor, say aye. TJ,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, team.
Yep. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
guys.
Nice to see you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Have a happy vacation, Samantha. And
Thank
don't
you.
take calls. Don't
Yeah.
answer emails. I mean, really.
Do we want to set up a site visit for Thursday, the 12th at like 8:30? Does that work for at least?
Yeah, I mean, I think
here?
we have seen the property. TJ's seen the property, Diane's seen the property. I mean, I'm fine. I have clarity on what the issues are. Mick, does Thursday work for you? It's really between you and Sam. I'll swing by, but.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate everybody's accommodating me, but I just want to see the site.
That's the 12th, Mick. That's good?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, so it's a week from this Thursday because you're on
Yep.
vacation. Okay.
Yeah. And would you like to have Tom there? We can, if Tom's available and. he can-
Obviously, they're representing the applicant, so they're more than welcome to be there. And like I said, I just want to get boots on the ground and see what I'm talking about.
Does that work for you, Tom?
I think so. I have something on the 12th and I'm stretching my brain to figure out what that was, but I think even if it's I'm doing a big project in Boston right now. I may have to be in Boston, but I can probably delay arrival that day long enough if it's at 8:30 in the morning.
Do you want to do it? What you want to do? What would be an alternate day? Would the day 11th or the 13th work for you? Everyone
Let's
just to
just
have it
stick with the
Stick with
12th.
The 12th, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
Okay. And
Okay.
honestly, Tom, if you're not able to make it, I'm not too worried about showing Mick where everything is. I mean, I've had my eyes glued to this project for such a long time and I have looked at it so intently. I feel pretty confident being able to show him where everything is. Plus I can
Okay.
read the site plan, so.
All right.
Okay.
What
All right,
time did you
thank-
arrive at?
Thank you, Tom. Thank
All
you.
right. Take
Chip.
care.
Okay.
Bye.
Tom, Chip,
Uh,
Sorry, sir, what time did you arrive at?
That
for-
was 8:30 on the 12th.
Thank you.
Okay, as we move on to administration section of our meeting. Sam, do you have anything else? We have no other matters before the board that require an action.
No, we don't have anything that is gonna need a vote or anything like that. So I did have the doc policy project or the doc policy discussion, but Mary's not here. And I
Hey,
think we
Mary.
could all agree that we would like to have her here for that, so I'm more than happy to kick that one. Plus it's
Mhm.
8 o'clock. And I
Yep.
have one other thing that I wanted to ask you guys about that'll be really quick, but
Let's bump the doc policy
Yeah.
to October 17th. It's not a burning topic, it's just kind of housekeeping, so.
and then the other thing that I want to talk to you guys about, since we do seem to want to be doing a lot more site visits with this iteration of the commission, which I'm very happy with, I have absolutely no problem with that.
on me.
In in an attempt to kind of maybe try to streamline things a little bit for people, for applicants in particular, especially where, you know, we have situations of, you know, the potential of not having a file number, but still wanting a site visit, and not requesting a site visit if we don't have a file number. So something that Merrimack actually does is and we certainly don't have to do it for every single new filing, but for every single new filing, Merrimack has a standing site visit date on the week prior to the hearing. So if we had a meeting today, last Tuesday, we would have done a site walk. So if you know, whatever time works best, whether it's early in the morning or on Tuesdays at 6, if we want to plan on doing site walks for particular projects, that people are interested in seeing, even if it's all of them, just to run through them really, really quick. I think it would be a really good idea to start doing that. That way, at a bare minimum, even if you didn't want to do a site walk, we now have, you know, everybody's seen sites for projects that are coming up. I know it helps. I usually try to swing by every project anyways to try to make sure that I know what's going on, especially if it's a site that I'm not familiar with and I don't see all the time, so that I can kind of have a visual of what's on the ground, what it looks like, and then I can visualize what it's going to look like with the proposed work. So is that something that you guys are interested in, with doing a standing site visit day?
Yeah, I think having that as a placeholder, now whether it's the Tuesday or a Monday, but I think having a standard, you know, a placeholder. And again, not every site, I think a lot of us, if it's on the island, most of us that live out here just have to ride by it. Oh, we already know the property. No, I think that's an excellent suggestion, Sam.
Okay. All right. So obviously it might not, well, actually our deadline date for new stuff for the 17th has passed, and I don't think I have anything new that's going to be coming in for the 17th. So we can probably start that with the first November meeting. As I get new applications that come in, I can send that out to everybody and let everyone know where they are, so we can start working on figuring out what days work best for that.
Okay. All right, I think, do we have any other questions? Who wants the final word? Mick, you want the final word tonight? And that can be a motion
I
to
do
adjourn.
not want the final word tonight,
No,
Chair.
no, that could be a motion to adjourn, Mick.
Yes, I would motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, TJ,
Aye.
Mick, Diane,
Aye.
Bob,
Yes,
Sam,
yes.
good night. Great job tonight, Sam.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Night.